Hey guys, I'm Lee Jessup, career coach for emerging and professional screenwriters, as well as screenwriting professor with the David Lynch Grad Program for Cinematic Studies. I'm here today with my good friend Jeff Portnoy, esteemed manager and champion of writers, who agreed to come and hang out with me a little bit and answer some questions. Hi, Jeff.
Hey, how's it going, Lee? Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks for you being here. I feel like anytime I ask you to do anything, you are always game, and I hope you know I really appreciate it. Tell everybody who's watching a little bit about you and how you became a manager.
Absolutely. I grew up loving movies and then went to film school and on the East Coast, and then I moved out to LA. I ended up kind of continuing my education at UCLA Extension in the certificate program for film and TV writing. And then I ended up my first big break in the business was I was gravitating towards being a screenwriter. That was my kind of passion back then. And I ended up getting a job at Creative Artists Agency as a story analyst, reading scripts written by our clients, scripts set up at studios, and reading books and writing coverage reports and opinionated comments on the scripts and books. And ultimately, kind of what happened is I had some time, I gave some time towards writing, giving writing a shot, and then I also had an opportunity at CA giving feedback to writers and clients of ours and talking to them and seeing the scripts develop, getting the second draft and third draft from these clients and seeing it develop. And I ultimately having a chance to do both, I ultimately decided that I enjoyed the process of working with writers to develop their scripts and then helping expose their work to the town, helping them get selling their materials, getting jobs, and I wasn't as passionate about writing. So having done both of them, a time came where I decided I was going to leave behind the writing aspirations and pursue any job where I would be working with writers to help them develop their material, scripts, teleplays, screenplays, and help them achieve their dream. And that led me to a company called the Gotham Group, where I started working as an assistant. I look at that as kind of my beginner's class in representation. I was there for about 18 months, and then at the time there was a startup agency called Resolution Talent Agency. They were hiring a bunch of former CAA agents who I knew, and I ultimately they brought me in to be the head of their story department, which was like a kind of a coordinator level, trainee level position. And I was there for about 18 months, and I look at that as kind of the master's class in representation. So I did about 3 years total. One at management company agency, got a lot of experience, and then when Resolution went out of business in 2014, I went out on my own with a handful of clients. I started out as an independent manager, went out on my own and built my client base for about a year, and then joined up with Bellevue and been at Bellevue ever since.
For more than a decade now,
Been
right?
about, yeah, we're coming up on 10 years now. So it's 10 years managing, 10 years at Bellevue. And then, yeah, but always been on the representation side, but I love working with writers and, that's the story.
It's quite the story. Just briefly, just for those who are not familiar with you, can you tell some of the highlights or the writers that you are working with or the successes that you've had, just so that they know?
Yeah, well, we've had I'm trying to think. I have lots of great clients, lots of great writers. We have clients staffing on shows and selling specs to features for major studios, and we have some clients with some produced credits. So we have clients writing across the spectrum. I would say most of my clients, just speaking for myself, not for the company at large, is live action features, live action television. Most of the TV is in the hour-long space and a lot of elevated genre stuff. But we have like amazing clients, and we love screenwriters and TV writers. Writers are our bread and butter. We do have a lot of filmmaker clients as well that we're starting to break, and they're writer directors.
Love that. Now, how do writers find you? How do writers get to somebody like you?
Yeah, there's a number of ways that we discover clients. Just to name a few of them. I mean, at any given time, we are judging competitions. Um, those competitions could be Final Draft Big Break. It could be, we attend these graduation programs, USC, LMU, AFI. They all have undergrad and graduate like programs where when you graduate, there's some type of like event where we get invited to it and we get to intermingle with the writers and hear their pitches and read their scripts, and then they'll send us a booklet. So we have a lot of interconnectivity with the major screenwriting programs. We there's the Blacklist website, there's the Blacklist Fellowship and Lab. We communicate with them. They're sending us people. We have we have agents calling us with potential clients. We have clients calling us with their friends, potential clients. We've got occasionally a cold email query. We'll still, we still once in a blue moon, someone will just reach out to us in an email and we'll read their script and maybe sign them. We get, I'm trying to think of other ways that producers and creative executives will say, hey, came across a great script, writer's on rep, writer doesn't have a manager. Those are a good amount, that covers a good amount of them, but there's, at any given time, lots of people reaching out with clients, and there's so many. We have so many, coming in that we do hope they're like vetted from people like you, people that we know. If it's an agent we know and trust, great, or a producer, or creative executive, if they're placing or winning in a competition, that helps us. There's tens of thousands of scripts out there, so it helps us narrow it down by who are the finalists in the various competition, who just got selected for the labs, who are just graduating from the big NYU pro. A lot of these there's lists as well. Like the NYU has their purple list, and there's the black list, and there's the blood. Well, there used to be the blood list. Now there's the Brit list, and there's a love list. There's a new like Valentine's Day one that comes out. There's these lists. They're all
Yeah.
vetting. Everything I just named is ultimately a vetting source to narrow down from tens of thousands down to maybe a few less than 100, hopefully. And then we read those and we sign from that group. And then if you think about the way the industry works, is like you have these vetting sources that writers are submitting their material to, and the managers are kind of scouting these vetting sources at this level. Then we sign clients at this level, and then we develop with them and we try to bring them up to the producers. We start showing their material to producers. Producers like their material, and a producer attaches. It's going to start to elevate the material, and they're going to come up to this level where agents are now sniffing around up here. And if the agents are sniffing around and producers are sniffing around, and then then agents are, it got vetted by a producer, will read it, and then they package it. And then once the packaging happens, the studio execs up here start sniffing around. So it's like managers scout at a certain level. We helped elevate our clients up to a certain level. That level is where producers and agents are kind of sniffing around. If we can get a producer or an agent to come on board, and a package comes together, then it elevates them. And then the people, the studio streamers, the buyers, they're sniffing around way up here. So there's a huge gap between where writers are when they graduate film school or start their journey as a writer regardless of whether they went to have formal education or not. And then there's where the buyers are, and it's the managers help you just move up a rank. Producers will help you, and then agents, and then we're trying to take those steps up to the top. That's basically the business in a nutshell. Everyone wants things to be vetted. The studio exec's not going to crack a script unless they're being told. An actor really loves it, or an A-list director really loves it. How do one of those guys really love it? They get it from an agent. Well, why would an agent read it? The agents, there are millions of scripts out there. They're looking at things that they heard producers say were good. It has to be vetted. Where are producers looking? They're talking to managers. They're not, So of course there's exceptions to every rule, but generally speaking, that's kind of how it works.
And once you find a script and a writer that you want to work with, always ends up being the writer, and then whatever it is they have, what happens then? What should a writer expect once they are signed?
Yeah, the first order of business is, typically the first order of business is trying to determine what screenplay or teleplay the manager is going to take out first from their body of work. And it's either going to be something they've already written that's ready to go, something they've already written that needs further development, or something from scratch. So that's every client, it's a different case. So when we sign a client, the first order of business is, what are we leading with? So it's just depends on what they have. Occasionally they'll have a script that I'll be like, this is in really great shape. I think this is at a threshold where we can get traction from producers. And we'll just take it right out. There's sometimes I'll read a script, go, this is a great idea. it's solid execution. I have some thoughts. Let's work on it for a few weeks or a few months, and then we'll take it out to producers. And then there's times where it's like, hey, you're a really talented writer. Your samples were great. You can execute. You have a great voice. But these ideas are not going to move the needle for anyone. Let's start on something new, and then we start the process of finding a new idea, developing from scratch. Sooner or later, though, it all comes to the same end, which is taking out the first thing, the first script of theirs out to the town and introducing them to the town. So that's what if they're a writer, that's what they can expect. If they're a writer director, it might be different. If they're a director, a dedicated director with no writing component, it's different. So it's always there. That's the writer thing. Writer director, it just if they're attached to direct a script, it's the same thing. They either have something ready to go, something that needs development, or something you're going to develop. When it's ready, they're attached to direct it. So it's a slightly different group of people you're going out to, depending on how much experience they have. If they've never directed a feature before, you're going out to a different crowd to make an independent film, raise money, a couple $1 million. If they've directed before, then maybe it's a slightly bigger group that you're going out to, but that changes the equation if they're attached to direct their own material.
Now, talk to me about the difference between writing to the town and writing to an audience. Because a lot of people, as you and I have talked about, write for, the movie that they think, they want to see or audiences want to see versus writing the movie that producers want to get involved with, the studios want to get involved with. Talk to me about that a bit.
Yeah, I think writers, one of the big misconceptions that writers encounter when they're getting into the business is they're looking at the end product. They're looking at what the end product is and thinking must be what Hollywood wants. They're going to the theaters and they're watching what's on streamers and they're thinking must be what they want. I'll go write this. But when the fact is a lot of things don't start out like a lot of screenplays and teleplays do not start out like the way they end up when they reach the market. They start out much differently, and the reason they start out differently is because the first obstacle that the first crowd that a manager and or agent have to take a script to is a crowd of people that have a very different taste in movies and a very different opinion of things than the consumer market that the things are aimed towards. So a lot of people writers will write something that like maybe airs a little on the broader side or big fun broad side because they saw this movie or that movie and then they're, hey, this is what Hollywood's making, so I wrote this. And then I'll explain to the writer how like it probably didn't start out like this. Because a lot of the people that work in I'll put it to you this way. You have in our town, in order to get a movie made, you need producers, you need directors, you need actors, and they're putting in a lot of time and effort to these projects to get them made. And they tend, because they're putting in time and energy, they tend to want to work on, in many years of their lives, they want to work on things that they personally really love. And their tastes are far removed from the tastes of the general public and the consumer audience. So I've noticed when my colleagues and I were taking screenplays out and teleplays out, the people that are the first, group we have to take it to are producers, directors, and actors. We have to get a package together before we approach the studios and streamers and networks. And directors, actors, and producers, they're looking at the script through a lens of, this is going to be years of my life and tons of energy and time. I want it to be something that I personally love, and they tend to like higher end material. So they're looking for comedies that have heart and that are poignant and are thought provoking. They like generally, as a general rule, we call it, sometimes I'll use the phrase, the town, producers, directors, actors, people that are not financing production tend to like things that are very elevated, grounded, that have heart, that have prestige, that make you think, make you feel. They like that stuff. Meanwhile, you have the consumer audience that wants to laugh, they want to have fun, they don't want to think too hard. They just and then you have the studio execs at the very top who, personally speaking, are aligned with their personal tastes, are aligned with the towns, but they're getting paid so much money and that they have to listen to the focus groups and they have to listen to the consumer market. So at the tops of any major streamers or studios, the higher up you go, the more likely those people are putting their own personal taste aside and listening to the consumer or the subscriber if it's a streamer. But the producers, directors, actors, they're not writing checks to finance productions. They're spending years of their life in tons of stress and energy. They want it to be something for them. So when I'm developing a script with a client, we try to find a balance. That's the biggest challenge when we're writing a script. They come to me with an idea. We lock down an idea, we start developing it, and I'm always saying we need something for the consumer and something for the town. You need to have you need to have heart. If it's a comedy, you need to have heart. It has to, the characters need to feel real, grounded. It has to be elevated. It has to really pull your heartstrings. They want to make you think. It's going to be topical. It's going to be timely. It's going to make this group get excited about it. But if it's too much of that stuff and it's not commercial enough, they won't engage because they'll know that once it gets into the buyer will say, "Where's the fun? Where's the action? Where's the bullets? Where's the suitcase of money? Where's the where's all the fun stuff? Where's all so you have to have both. We bring it to a producer and we need to have just enough commercial merit that the producer goes, yeah, they'll buy it. The studios will buy it because they know that their audience loves it. But there's something for me in here too. There's heart. There's elevation. It's making me think. I can see myself maybe getting that Oscar or get the Emmy or whatever it is. If it doesn't have enough of the commercial merit, then they're going to say, hey, Jeff, we love this. And I want to meet this writer. This is my favorite. This was the kind of movie I dreamed about making. But it's too like dramatic and they'll never buy it because they need some bullets. They need some fun. They need some comedy. They need some whatever it is, romance. They need some stuff because the consumer audience, if it's the other polarized way where it's too much commercial merit, then you'll never get, it's a catch-22. If you have a spectrum and on one side you have elevation and heart and prestige and then on the other side you have commercial fun, broad, silly, just nothing but fun, and you have to go in the middle. If it's too far on this side, the studios would love it, but they'll never get it because they tend to only really look at packages, and so they'll never get it because it'll never be packaged. It'll never be vetted and packaged by the people they pay millions of dollars to be the gatekeepers and vet projects. If it's too much on this side, you'll get tons of love from producers in the town, but they'll say, yeah, Netflix will never buy this or Amazon won't buy it because it's too dramatic, it's too art house, or it's not going to do it. So you're always going down the middle and walking this very tightrope walk between engineering the script so there's just enough for producers, directors, and actors, but there's just enough for buyers. And if you can get across the tightrope all the way across, you could have some success. If you write too far towards the town, they're going to love you. They're not going to take the script, do anything with your script. They're going to love you, and they're going to try to plug you into something more commercial. So if you write something that's very elevated, grounded, sophisticated, prestigious, makes you think, feel, does all the stuff that the town loves, that has interesting, dimensional, flawed characters, directors are loving it, actors are loving it, producers are loving it, but it doesn't have enough commercial merit to get any traction with the buyers, they will meet with you generally. They will say, we love you. You went way too far on the other extreme side of the spectrum, but you know what? We have this more commercial thing that's set up at the studio. Can we hire you to plug you into that? But it won't be as edgy as this, but you'll be elevating the material we have set up at the studio or the streamer. It's a kind of a shoot 'em up, good cop, bad cop thing, but we're going to bring you in and try to elevate it a little bit so you get plugged in. If you go the other way, the other extreme side, you won't get any love from producers or the town whatsoever. Maybe there's a few exceptions, but pretty much everyone will say it's too broad, it's too silly, it doesn't make me think, it's not timely. They'll look down on it and say, not for me. And then you have a script that no one wants to be involved with. You can go right to the studio. You can take a Hail Mary and reach right out to Netflix and say, hey, we heard you guys are looking for the holiday rom-com or the holiday romantic adventure action, fun, swashbuckling, broad, fun, big thing. But the producers weren't interested. Just talent wasn't interested. Would you guys want to do this and go right? You can make it go right to the consumer, and they'll say, sure, send it over, but it's going to go at the very bottom of the pile because they're paying these producers millions of dollars in overhead for first look and exclusive deals, and they're getting a million pieces of material and scripts coming in, and they're going to prioritize the packages. That's just the way it is. If you're an exec at Netflix or Amazon, you're prioritizing the big A-list packages. Then you might move down to things that don't have packages, but have A-list producers that are absolutely obsessed with those projects. The thing coming in from reps that's never been vetted through the normal vetting sources are going to go to the bottom, and you're most likely not going to engage, especially if the writer doesn't have any produced credits. It's probably never going to get read or engaged on. But some of those scripts on that side are exactly what they want. So you have this weird catch-22 where the tastes of the consumer there's a huge disparity between the tastes of our town. How do you reconcile that? You try to walk that tightrope. If I have clients writing action films, thrillers, horror, comedy, you name it, and when they're writing that stuff, I'm always going through the scripts and just telling them we need to amplify this or that for the town, for producers, directors, actors. Make this character flawed, make them less well adjusted. They're struggling with some deep, dark backstory thing. Actors are going to dig that. Let's make it high concept and thought provoking. Directors are going to love that. Let's make it something where people can kind of see enough prestige in it where they can get to have that dream of getting their Oscar. Producers are going to love that. But there still has to be some gunplay and some action because the buyers are going to think about the market. They're going to bring in their marketing exec thinking about the poster and the trailer and go, oh, we're not doing this. No way. You have to have a little gunplay and a little explosion and some money moving around and maybe a little, some romance. And like, we need to do that. Like, if you can find the balance, you're gold. But if you can't find the balance, you're gonna, if when clients ask me if I suggest if they're gonna write on one extreme or the other, I always advocate for them to go to the far extreme, writing for the town, because then at least you build relationships with producers, directors, and actors, and they start plugging you into things. We've had clients write very edgy, unique, bold, loud, prestigious projects, and it could be genre too. It could be like elevated genre. It could be like high end art house horror or sci-fi. That's what I would suggest they do, because then they get all these fans. They get on the blacklist. Everyone loves them and wants to work with them. Can't sell the script to the studio because the studio's like, how do we market that? How do we? There's not enough. It's not fun enough. It's not. It's too dark. It's not fun. It's not. It's too whatever. They won't make it. But then they'll one day we'll get a call. Hey, is we're your client? We're thinking about plugging them into this thing. We have this thing. The studio's going to make it. It's based on best-selling IP. It's pretty down the middle, but they feel safe with it. But we need a writer, and we loved your client's script that was on the blacklist that couldn't get produced because it was too edgy and profound and unique and different. But we can see, would they be willing to conform to this, compromising a little and writing something a little more commercial? And next thing you know, they're working. So I would say either you want to write that end of the spectrum and move to the middle, or try to be in the middle. But the further you go towards what the consumer wants and what the streamers are asking for based on the algorithm and the numbers they're seeing, you're going to have a really tough time writing that stuff, because the big dirty secret in Hollywood is very few people that work in Hollywood like the end product that Hollywood makes, even though the consumer loves it. They don't, behind closed doors, the people making a lot of these things are look down their noses at it. That's just, and I've used different allegories and metaphors over the year to kind of help explain it, but it's like, I don't know, the board of directors at McDonald's, do they really eat a lot of McDonald's? These are billionaires and millionaires. They probably are at high end eating French Laundry and whatnot, and they would, but that's what they're making their money off of, because they have a very high end taste, but they're making it. So that's just the way it is. You know what I'm saying? So
That's really a really
it's a
good allegory,
fascinating
actually.
psychological thing. Yeah, it's been happening since the beginning of the since motion picture camera was invented and Hollywood came in. It's an expensive thing to do, so you need people with a lot of money, but you also need the artists. So the artists, the people that work here that are artists, producers, directors, actors, writers, they have a higher end taste. But the people out there, they just want to kind of escape for 2 hours, laugh, not think too hard, and then you have to reconcile that. The people with the money are like, the audience wants this, so do this. The people that are like, but it's our time. Yes, I know it's your money, but it's our time. We're doing this, and you meet halfway. Most of the time, you meet halfway, and that's how you get things done. Occasionally, one side will win. If the talent package of a certain project is big enough and powerful enough, it can shield from studio notes, and it can get through and be a higher end thing, even though it was financed by a major studio streamer. Sometimes the shield is too weak and the notes are coming in and it's getting watered down and getting sillier and broader. And what it comes out is, it just comes out kind of like it is what it is. But people love it. It does ton of business, a good box office. You know what I'm saying? And it's just, you have this art versus entertainment kind of thing. And by the way, that's one of the, like, in that new Apple series, The Studio, Seth Rogen, they talks a lot about how that's what it's really about. It's that struggle, and that no show has ever really looked at it under the microscope in that way. So I recommend writers watching every episode of that show. But that is what's happening, is you have these people that grew up loving movies. They went to film school. They were producers, but they end up at the studios because that's where the big paydays and the most power is. But then the heads of the companies are like, but we're a business. And the people that put the money up, we put the money in. We don't put a lot of time in. We put our money up. Producers, actors, directors, it's 5 years of their lives. But since it's just our money, we want it. We're going to listen to the consumer. But the other people are like, but it's our fucking time. It's our whole lives. And we're going to listen to our hearts. And you have that balance. Every time I give a script to a producer and I'm saying, I'm enlisting their help to develop it further, possibly package it, sell it, get it made, physical pre-production, physical production. They're looking at it through a lens of, do I love this thing in my heart of hearts? Forget about the consumer, who it's geared toward, who it's marketed to. Do I love this? Can I see myself 5 years and then they're thinking of all the movies they love, and because they have a higher end discerning taste, they went to film school, they've been movies their whole lives, they're going to gravitate towards that more prestige. But the buyers are like, we're writing a huge check and it's our ass, it's our job if it fails. Put their own personal taste aside and just say, what do you got? What do you 18 to 25-year-old male demographic? What do you like? Well, some guns and it blows up and it's fun. And then they'll say, that's what we're doing because we don't want to lose the salary that we're making. And that's what's going to happen. And the higher the salary is, the more risk, the more you are able to shut off your own personal taste. So if you make $1 million a year, you can, maybe you can turn off your personal taste a little bit and focus on the consumer. But if you're making like 100 million, you just don't even, your own taste go out the window. You want to keep that gig, and you're just listening to the subscriber. Whatever they want is what you want. This is why, a movie will do well on one of the streamers, and they'll look at their algorithm and they'll see the numbers, and people at the very top will say, hey, these romantic comedies are doing really well. Holiday romantic comedies are doing well. Broad action, fun action comedies are doing really well. And then that message goes down and it follows down all the way to the juniors, and then it comes out to the producers, and then it comes down to managers and agents. We hear that this is what they want. They want fun, they want broad. So our clients go off, write those fun, broad scripts, and we take them to producers, and the producer goes, we don't want to do this. Well, wait, you said you just had a meeting at Netflix or Amazon. They said they want this, but you're saying this is your passing, but that's what they're asking. Yeah, that's what they want, but like, and we are parroting what they're saying because we just had a meeting and they did say that. If we're being honest, I don't know if we want to work on it for 3 to 5 years, so we don't really want them to buy that for us. They want us to bring it to them, but we don't want them to buy it for us because then we have to work on it for 3 to 5 years. We're going to pass on this broad thing we told you they want, but bring us that prestige thing, that like elevated thing that we really can get behind. And then it's like, okay, so you want the thing they're not looking for because you're looking, and it's just a confusing, that's why it's a very, very dysfunctional place, but we find ways to circumvent and navigate. And that's why it's good to have managers and agents and representatives and attorneys, because we can help people figure out a way around this bizarre maze that's just always changing and it's crazy. But yeah, I always tell clients, like, I always talk about the spectrum and then talk about, you want to kind of try to be in the middle. But if you can't be in the middle, if it's just not your natural voice, you want to try to be on this side. And I try to sign people that are in that area. If someone sends me a script and that's very on the broad, fun, action comedy side, if that's their natural voice, I'm probably going to try to maybe not sign them, basically, unless they're willing to move over into the middle and try to find a balance. If they're willing to find a balance, if I read a script that's really well written, but it's broad and it's too geared towards the end user or the consumer or the subscriber, I'll meet the writer and say, hey, I think you're talented, but you got to be willing to come over, add some elements that are going to elevate, make it more prestigious, so I can get some of these people. If they're willing to do that, then we can work together. If they're like, no, I write end user stuff, I write big, fun, broad, and then I'm not going to work with them probably, because I'll never be able to galvanize attract a package. They'll just people to say not for them, even though that's what they're looking at. The studio streamers are looking for. Versus that may be what they're looking for. It's not going to be me doing it. So it's a fascinating thing. It's just try to work on that, try to write for, I always say, just in short, write for the town, write for producers, directors, managers, everyone who does not finance production, from managers, agents to producers, directors, and actors. That's the town. When I say the town, that's what I mean, that group. And that group really wants, there's exceptions. You always run into someone that's like, I actually love like just heartfelt, kind of silly, kind of, sappy comedies or like soapy things or whatever. And it, of course, and everyone has their like, everyone has their little, what would you call it? Guilty pleasure where they have a few things, but for the most part, it's they want if they're going to put a lot of time and effort, it's a hard prospect that you're bringing them, difficult prospect, like, that you're asking of them. They wanted to err on that other side. So yeah, if we have writers working in any space on this side of the spectrum, we're moving them to the middle, and if they're really far on the other side, we're also trying to move them a little to the middle. That's the goal, is trying to get to the balance. But for me, I'm okay if they're on this side of the more original, unique, bold, edgy, hard to market, but but that side that's like prestige or thought-provoking, art house, whatever, that I'm okay with too, because at least with those, you're probably not going to get a big sale, set it up at the studio, but you're getting a lot of love. Blacklist, producers, 20, 30 general meetings, agents trying to sign, and then you start getting job assignments. You start getting put up for assignments. You land jobs, and then the next spec maybe we nudge it over a little more towards the middle of the spectrum, a little more commercial than the last one, and then a little bit more, and then your odds of getting it made are going up as you're getting that perfect balance.
A lot to think about, a lot to consider as writers decide what to work on and what to prioritize. Now,
Yeah.
recently there's been a lot of changes in the kind of writer discovery landscape. Nickel just changed how they take submissions. They're going to be really not as open to the wide audience as they were previously, and that there's a limited number of scripts that the blacklist will forward to them, and as well as the other organizations. Coverfly, we are told, is going away this summer. Does that impact in kind of the long term the opportunities that writers have? Because a lot of writers feel like, what do I do now? So I just want to get your 2 cents of it from the perspective of a manager who is taking on clients.
Yeah, I mean, there's yeah, Blacklist, Nickel, Coverfly, all these things are vetting sources that where they're places that managers are scouting the top 10% of the scripts coming out of those vetting sources. So if you take out a few vetting sources, it's fewer, yeah, then you're limiting the opportunities for writers to get discovered. But there's still a lot. There's still a lot. So Coverfly going away is unfortunate. The Nickel, the amount of scripts the Nickel is accepting, I understand, is going down. That's a little unfortunate, but so it's a little contraction in the vetting. Like if you look at that group as you have like millions of writers out in the world, and then you have these like major vetting sources like Coverfly, Blacklist, Final Draft, any place that a writer can reach out to and put their script into the apply their script, and then it gets to a place where the top 10 are shared with managers and agents around town, the finalists, the semifinalists, all that stuff. Those are vetting sources. When one of those dies, then yeah, that's bad for writers. It's also bad for reps because there's just one less vetting source out there. At the same time, I'm at a place where I'm so busy that one or of the 10 vetting sources kind of going away isn't probably going to affect me that much. I'm so underwater with like potential clients coming my way. I don't really need it's not going to affect me personally. I don't know if it affects the company, but yeah, I guess in general, it's always sad because that's how writers get discovered. There's just too many writers and too many screenplays for us not to lean on a vetting source to narrow down. And just like there's too many scripts going out from agents and managers for going out from agents and managers for that's what producers and agents are looking at. They're not producers and agents aren't scouting in the vetting sources. There's like tons of scripts in the vetting sources. We narrow it down, and then that's where they're picking from. That's where they like kind of pick from, and then the buyers are way up looking down and waiting to see if something makes it all the way up. That's basically Hollywood in a nutshell. It's a vertical kind of cylinder, and you have at the very bottom writers, and then you have these vetting sources, then you have managers, then you have probably I would say producers and agents. Sometimes it can be flipped. You have them maybe at a parallel place. You go to agents and get it vetted, and then producers are going to be more interested. If you go to producers, if managers take something to producers, get them interested, agents will be more interested because they're vetted. These are people that are vetting things, and then the people at the very top, the buyers, are waiting for it to get vetted by everybody, and then that's where and then talent gets vetted, gets to look at things when agents and producers get involved. And if talent is saying something's good, then it's gone all the way up to the top. A script has to be good enough to perform well in the fellowships and in the competitions and the labs. And if it performs well, it's going to get on the radar of managers. If managers shop it around to producers and agents and it does well, it's probably going to get on the radar of talent. And if talent's circling or starting to attach, that's where the buyer knows it's time to read. And that's the way it's a gauntlet, and you just have to move it all the way up. So it's hard to get something to go all the way through. Usually we're signing of the top, like managers are signing so I would say somewhere between the 1 and 10% of the top writers or scripts that are coming out of the fellowships and the things that are winning and placing and Nickel and Final Draft. But then we're doing like a lot of work on them with the writer. Then they improve, and then we get out to producers. Then a producer's like, this is good, but still needs work. They're doing some work. They bring it to an agent. Agents, we love this. We're going to give it to our director client. Director likes it. That's where a buyer will be like, all right, it's time for us to look at it. It's you've made it all the way to the gates, and we're here to look at it. But it's hard to get all the way through that. And writers have to understand that that if you win or place a competition, you're just getting started. You're in a place where you might get signed, but now you have to do more work to pique the interest of this group that the managers are going to shop it to, and then be prepared for them to say it still needs work before we go to talent, and then let the talent might attach and say it still needs work, but we'll attach. Now let's go to a buyer and they can pay for the final rounds of, and it's tons of development all the way through, and it doesn't really end until the film is like pretty much on the screen. And you just that's what it takes to be a writer, and that's why a lot of people don't make the cut to be a writer because they can't persevere, sustain through. I mean, I'm even speaking for myself. I tried writing out, and I would love the first draft. I enjoyed the second draft, but like you're on the 50th draft and you're losing some of the creative excitement and energy, and you're ready to move on. It just wasn't for me because I wasn't able to keep that excitement all the way through that seemingly endless process of you develop on your own, you develop with your reps, you develop with a producer, you develop with talent, you develop with the studio, and then you still are developing once it's getting closer to in. Sometimes the budget's coming in and then you got to change things. So there's your weekly jobs where you're writing on set, and it just doesn't stop until it's in the can. And you have to be, I mean, getting paid at a certain point of that thing does help, but there's a long road before you get paid, and you have to be willing to, find the creative energy and excitement, even though you're endless rewrites, and it's a hard gauntlet to kind of survive to get through called the development gauntlet. It's just so wild and it's difficult. But anyway, I forgot where we started, where that all started from. I
It
lost track.
brought us to a good place. One last question, if you're up for it. And I know
Sure.
this looks different for every manager, but writers who are reaching out to you, writers that are looking for representation, are doing so with the hope that the material is discovered and goes out into the town. I happen to know that you have a script that is lined up that you're taking out next week. What does it look like when a manager and agent takes a script out?
Yeah, that's a great question. So yeah, I'll use that script as an example. So I manage a very talented writing team that just finished a supernatural horror script, spec screenplay. And they have an agent, and the agent and I gave them notes and are now happy with the script, and we're ready to take it out next week. So it starts with the agent manager generating a list of producers. So we'll use like a Google sheet, and we'll create a list of production companies, and you'll have the name of the company. These are we always start with the most usual suspects. So it's going to be all of the well-known horror companies whose brand is spot on for horror. Then as the list goes, we get further down the list, we start opening up a little bit to some companies that like dabble in a few that aren't like as defined just a horror only. They do like a little bit of horror, a little action thriller, maybe some comedy, like some. And then at the bottom of the list we have some companies that are just kind of outliers that maybe we're going to reach out. And the reason you do that is you start with the usual suspects, because if you can get one of the usual suspects on board, they have the biggest marquee names and the most connections, because that's all they do. I'll use a few: Atomic Monster, Blumhouse, Vertigo. Those are three names that come to the top of my list. You really want to try to get those, but they're also attracting every single, because they're so formidable in that space, in that horror space, they're attracting every script under the sun. So getting their bar for their threshold of quality is so high, and even if they love something, they sometimes just don't have the bandwidth to take it on. So you're going to start working your way down, and when you get down to some of the companies that aren't attracting as many projects, then you get maybe a higher likelihood that they'll engage, but maybe they're not as. So you're aiming high, but then you're working down to then you get to some companies in the middle of the list that are like really competent and experienced production companies, but they're not like known for horror. You know what I'm saying? But they're also not getting every horror script. So they get it. They're like, oh, we've been looking for one of these. Like this is exactly what, oh, they have a deeper need for this. They have a more hunger for it. This is fantastic. The usual suspect companies, they were like, yeah, every day we get 100 of these. Like it is what it is. So you're going down the list, and you're ultimately trying to find a home. The goal is to find a producer, and then once the producer's attached, the goal is to then a script can kind of break in a various direct. Once a producers are reading the script and liking it, a few things are going to happen. So we'll create this list. The agent and I will create the list. We'll divvy the list up. They'll take some submissions. I'll take some. We'll get it out to these producers, and there's going to be some passes. There's going to be some passes where general meeting is not requested. There's going to be some passes where they're going to say, not for me, not for the company, but we love the writing and love to meet the writer and hear what they're working on, develop a relationship with the writer, and maybe there's something else we can work on together, assignment we have, or maybe it's an original idea they have. So that's a consolation prize. We like that. We love when our clients get the general meetings. And then there's situations where they're reading it and they want to engage on the script itself. So they're either going to pass and request a general, or they're going to want to meet project specific meeting about the script. And if they do that, then we start to talk to them. The reps, the agent and I start talking to the producer about what their plan would be if they wanted to engage. The plan's going to kind of break down into probably 3 zones. A producer is going to say, love this, love meeting the client. We're interested. We want to, and they're going to say probably it's going to be one of 3 things. One is we want to take it to a buyer directly. And one is we want to take some time to package it. We want to take some time to further develop and package it, or we just want to take some time to package it. It's going to be one of those things. And occasionally you'll get a company saying, we want to try to do a packaging play, a non-exclusive packaging play. So there's 3 outcomes of the manager and agent taking this screenplay out to producers. You're going to have some producers wanting to, hey, we'd love to take this to Netflix. We'd love to take it to Amazon. We'd love to take it to Apple, take it to Universal, Warner Brothers, and just send it in. And it has no talent attachments, and hope that they want to get involved. What I would call early, coming in early, and helping the producer find the director and actor, putting some money down on it, helping develop it with the producer, help find actors and directors. That's sometimes the plan. Other times producers will say, we read this, we don't want to take it directly into a buyer. We think it needs further development and we think it needs talent. So we want an exclusive window of time to either further develop it and then package it, or possibly they like the script as is and they just say, just give us an exclusive window to package it, but we won't open our Rolodex, pick up the phone, or do anything until we have exclusivity. So we'll meet with your client, we'll pitch ourselves, they can meet wherever else is interested, and then they can make a choice. And if it's us, then we open the Rolodex, we start sending it out to directors we know and actors we know. And then there's the most rare of the 3 things, which is a production company saying, we will try to package it. We don't want to go into buyers without talent. We're not asking for exclusivities, or we have 1 or 2 directors what we think are good for it. Just give us a shot. And you guys can, while we're waiting for those reads, you can go to other producers, to other buyers. Other talent. And if they, and the reps have to bring this information back to the writer and talk to the writer about which avenue we want to go in. Sometimes you have no options. You take the script out and all producers have the same opinion and there are no options. So let's say you take a script out to 30 producers and everyone passes. You have no options. They all pass. You take it out to 30 producers. Everyone feels like they wants to take it into buyers without talent. Well, you go to the writer, you bring that information back to the writer, and you make your decision. Do you want to do that? Well, no one else is interested in it enough to package it. So it's easy choice. We'll sign territories, give this producer those 5 buyers, give this other producer these 3 buyers, give this producer 2 buyers, carve up the town and let it go into buyers as a naked spec, as we call it, or with a clean spec. That's the words we use: clean or naked, meaning no director, no actor, no talent. So other times it's all packaging. All the producers are like, this absolutely must be packaged. No one's asking to bring it in clean or naked into any buyers. So you have your writer meet with everybody, pick 1 company to team with, or maybe 2 if they'll work together, and then you give them 6, 9, or 12 months to put a package together. Now where it gets complicated is when you're getting multiple requests of different things. So you take the script out and you have, to 40 producers, and you've got 10 that want to do territories, 10 that want exclusive packaging, and 3 or 4 that are like, hey, we're just gonna run. We don't need exclusivity. We know a director. Let us send it to him. And while we're waiting for that read, you can let everybody else do whatever they want with it. We're gonna try to do this. If it starts, that's when things get complicated, and that's where the agents and managers have to hop on with the client and start to navigate, run through the pros and cons of the different decisions, and there's pros and cons to all the decisions and choices you make, and you have to figure it out. So it's nice when it's easy and simple when you're not given a choice. But all we can do as reps is help the writer develop the best script they can write, and then we expose it to the right companies, and we expose it to the town, and then we sit back and see what the feedback is, and the town will tell us what they think the direction. Usually I call it break. It'll break in one direction or another. I'll take out a script, everyone's loving it, and all the calls are, we got to package this. So I'll tell my client it's breaking towards a packaging play. These people, they all like it. You're going to take a bunch of meetings, and then you're going to choose one, and then we're going to let one run off and package it, or maybe 2 if they're willing to team up and split the producing pot. Or everyone's asking for territories. We tell the writer, look, this is an easy decision. Everyone thinks it's good enough and it's the right thing that can just go in and sell without talent attachments, which is really hard to do. It's very rare that that happens. Most of the buyers are looking for talent attachments, or they're looking for the writer to have produced credits. If you don't have produced credits that move the needle with a buyer and there's no talent attachments, you're talking a pretty slim, narrow passageway to a sale. But everyone's saying that they think that. No one's asking for packaging time. No one wants to package it. Let's take that. It gets complicated when it's like, oh, now we have a choice to make. So we call the client. We say, all right, this is a good problem to have, but a couple people want to do packaging, a couple want to take it out as a spec. And what do they'll ask us, what are the pros and cons? And you'll say, this is and that's the conversation gets longer. If I elaborate on that, it gets longer. We sit there and we talk about what are the pros and cons of, can you do one and then the other? Can you do both of them concurrently? That's where the writer will ask us. They'll say, okay, so 3 producers want to take it into studios, 3 want to package it. Why can't I have the best of both worlds? Why can't I just say, go in? Well, we'll say to the writer, well, this is the deal. You can't have the best of both worlds. If we tell these 3 producers go off and package it, but we tell these 3 take it into buyers, if the buyers pass, these 3 over here that are trying to package it are going to have difficulty packaging it if they have to disclose, if they're aware of and have to disclose those passes. So ideally, you want to do one at a time. You want to do one at a time in a sequence. You want to either give some people some time to package it, and if that fails, you take it out as a spec into territories, or you do the territory thing, and if that fails, then you give people some time to package it. And there's pros and cons of each of those sequences, and we just walk them through all the pros and cons and the ups and downs, and ultimately it's just they need to make the decision. We're here to just inform them and help them come to an informed decision. It's like, this is the pros and cons. Luckily, a long time ago when I first started, it was like one of those things where you'd really want to try to package it first, and then if you couldn't package it, you would take it out as a naked or clean spec to the buyers as like a plan B. The reason we go in that sequence is because if you took it out to buyers first and they all passed, and then you're trying to package it, if you're disclosing those passes from the major buyers to agents and managers and talent, it had this stigma. The script is not really that. It must not be that good. If Netflix passed, if Amazon, if Universal, if they all passed, and it would stunt your ability. It would hinder your ability to package. So we'd always go in that order. We'd always try packaging first, and if packaging failed, then you go out as a clean spec. Nowadays, we are seeing more take it out as a clean spec, and if everyone passes, you package it. And the reason that's happening is because the stigma of the buyer passes is diminishing over time because they're buying so few projects that are not packaged. So if 90% of everything they buy has talent elements and only 10 don't, and out of the 10% that don't have talent elements attached, they're high-end produced writers that have big credits, then what that says to the town is they're, for whatever reason, and there are reasons, and we're not going to get into that, but they're not taking risks in buying things unless it's got a package. Well, then that means the buyer passes mean less. In the 80s and 90s, where 90% of everything that sold had no elements and only 10 were packages, a buyer pass back then was absolute death knell. Like in the 80s, if you had to disclose to a bunch of producers and agents that you had passes across the board at all buyers, your project was dead because they were buying back then. They were buying a lot, and they were buying because the script idea was great and the script was really good. They weren't going, oh, it also has a director who liked it and also has an actor. It's safer for us to buy something with that. And it's also a big A-list director. Now that the overwhelming majority of options and purchases at major buyers are packages or partial packages or writers that are super A-list, the buyer passes are the stigma is diminishing, and it's getting lower and lower. Now, if they change and they start buying more specs and take more risks, when you buy a spec from a writer that's unproduced or doesn't have actor or director, ultimately you're taking a risk. If you're a studio executive or a streamer executive and a script comes to you that you love, and the writer has no produced credits, no big track record, and there's no talent attached, and you buy it, you spend a lot of money on that, it's not a great look at the studio or streamer, because if they're reviewing your purchase history and they say, why did you buy that? And you just say simply because it was good, you're probably on your way out of that place. If you say, I bought it because this director was attached, or I bought it because it's based on this best-selling IP, or I bought it because they say, okay, that's a good mindset for the studio. The mindset of following your heart on a good piece of material is for a producer. For the studio, it's better to be, okay, it was this writer from this best-selling movie for this hit movie wrote it, and this director was circling it, and this producer was calling me going nuts. Then the bosses go, okay, we would have done the same thing too. You're okay. you're fine. So they don't want to take risks, and if they don't want to take risks and they're not going to buy anything, then the passes are meaningless. Like right now, I've been seeing lately where situations where a script goes into buyers, passes across the board. A producer calls us and said, "Hey, I read the script. It's great. Can we want to attach? Has it had any history?" We say, "Yeah, we go to it. We're going to full disclosure. It's been passed on by all buyers." And they go, "We don't care." They buy very little without packages. The writer doesn't have any big credits. We're going to come on, further develop it, package it, and we'll bring it back. And they'll look at it as a completely new equation. They'll forget they read it the first time, and they will totally, and this is happening more and more often. This has happened to me several times recently, where like 10, 15, 20 years ago you'd never see that. Now the when you disclose a buyer pass now, it just doesn't really register with a lot of it's not great, it's not ideal, but it's just like people are like, yeah, don't worry about it. Like, oh, it's not a big deal. Wait, it's not a big deal that Netflix passed on it? Nah, they barely would. You sent it without any talent? Yeah, it went in without any talent. Yeah, we'll package it 6 months and we'll bring it back and they'll want to buy it. And they're okay. So we're seeing this like the kind of negative thing of this shift from them, again, 80s and 90s, 80 to 90% of the projects that were bought had no talent elements, and now it's flipped, it's inverted entirely.
Yeah.
The only upside, that's bad for writers. That means you're not going to get paid until the package is together and it's sold. It's a much longer wait. If you sell a spec without talent, you write it, your reps take it to the buyers, and then you're getting paid. If you have to package it, it's like a 6, 9, 12, 18, sometimes never it never happens getting that package together. So it's bad news. This paradigm shift from 80 to 90% of projects being purchased or optioned without talent attachments that happened in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and that slowly, gradually has flipped to the other side is bad for writers. The only good thing is that the buyer pass stigma is diminishing and getting less and less meaningful, to the point where a pass from a buyer is like, so what? Of course they're going to pass. Now, if a package gets passed on, that's a bigger thing. If a package gets passed on at a buyer, then you have a bigger problem, because then you can't say, oh, it wasn't packaged. They did, but who knows why they didn't like it? Maybe they didn't like one of the talent elements. Maybe they didn't like the script. You'll never know. They'll probably never disclose that. But anyway, that's kind of where the business is at.
I appreciate you filling us in on all of that. That's a lot of really great, useful information looking behind the curtain a little bit. Jeff, thank you so much for coming on and doing this. I know we went a little long, and I hope you know just how much I appreciate your time. So thank you again
My
for all
pleasure.
that you do for the community. And I really
I
appreciate
hope
you
I
being
hope
here.
I hope the writers out there find this useful. This is definitely behind the curtain, inside Hollywood type of psychological stuff that you don't really hear about this stuff in film school or university, or even out on the streets here, like at internships. And you have to hear this stuff about how it really works behind the scenes and the reality of things, and understand the psychology of how the town works, because there's all these catch-22s and conundrums. There are ways to bypass and circumvent them, but you need a guide to help, which is what reps do. So
Really appreciate all of that. It's invaluable. All right, with that in mind, I'm going to stop the recording.